Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, all you Road to Growth listeners. Today is a fun one. It's always nice getting someone on here that is in the kind of similar sector that I am. That besides doing this podcast, I also have a real estate team in San Diego. So speak the language of numbers. And today I'm lucky enough to have Mark Ritter on here. He is the CEO of MBFS and New Direction Lending. Hi, Mark.
Hi, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, no, definitely. We were talking a little bit before we got onto Mike a little bit that, so you're originally out on the pavement, kind of originating loans, and then transitioned to kind of overseeing credit unions, building the branches up, and kind of managing people. What was more difficult, hitting the pavement or managing other people?
You know, it was definitely more difficult getting into building a company and refocusing a company. I had a nice career like many of us out there, originating loans and moving forward and building up some departments and making a lot of loans where you had this big infrastructure. You're part of a bigger organization. And about 8 years ago, I took on the challenge. A bunch of people I know asked me to take over this little company that we had. It was only a handful of people. And I was the fifth CEO in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I quickly found out why I was the fifth CEO in 5 years, because of all the things that I had to fix and really kind of going to a back to basics approach. So all these extraneous things that I never thought I had to worry about while I was just, part of a larger organization, it was now on me. It was to build this company.
That has to be a little daunting going into a position where every year you're technically the new firing is going to happen. So that year mark when you were there, you're like, okay, am I getting fired? I'm not getting fired. That's going to be pretty daunting, kind of jumping in those shoes.
Yes, yeah, it is. The nice thing about what I do now is I knew people really like dealing with credit unions. Nobody is anti-credit union unless you're your local banker, but that's another story. So I knew what we could build based off of my previous experience. So we could. It was just a matter of really creating a culture to succeed and getting the right people on the ship and focusing on those little things early on that we could have a foundation to build.
Well, let's jump back a little bit to where you came from. Have you always had a love for doing loans? Have you always had a love for numbers?
Do you know, it was really crazy because one of my first jobs out of college, I would sit there. I got hired by a bank, and it was just happenstance. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, up in the coal region, and quite frankly, not a lot of job opportunities. So I had to go out, and it was kind of one of these, what's the first jobs you can get? And I found a job at a bank. And we would sit there in the training program and they would put all the math on the board and what was happening. And I would just spit out the answers. And people would say, how did you know this? How long you've been doing this? And I said, well, today. I've always kind of had this natural instinct for some of the numbers and crunching and the business analysis. And it's always been a nice fit. When I first started out there on the street, I was working for some larger organizations, and growing up in a real small town, blue collar area, I always liked the community institutions and community lending. And when I was in the job market, that's when I really researched and started focusing on working and starting for credit unions, because it hasn't been that long that they could get into the real estate investments and commercial lending and small business lending that we do now. Back then, when I first got into this, it was unheard of. I think I got my first big break because the credit union didn't know what they were getting into or how to hire somebody. So they hired me, and we really built it up. Built up a nice program at a large credit union. So
how long was this?
Yeah, that was nearly 20 years ago, and I was about 20 years ago, and I was there for 10 years. When I started in the credit union space, the entire country for credit unions, there was only a couple $100 million of business loans, real estate investment loans in the entire country. And most of that was niche products like church loans or Amish loans that Amish credit unions made, or taxi medallion loans. Now credit unions are doing about 35 to 40 billion a year in commercial loans and real estate investment loans. And it's kind of become the norm. Biggest challenge is people just don't know about us, and they don't think of coming to a credit union for their lending.
So you're saying 20 years, when do you think the floodgates were actually opened up of more of a variety of like residential or commercial loans through the credit unions?
Yeah, what the biggest driver for us that really kind of become a choice for us is after back in 1998, Congress passed a law that allowed more people to join credit unions. It used to be maybe you were a teacher and you joined your local teachers credit union, or some factory or government employees, and that's all it was really open to. So it was tough for these organizations to build scale. So and so that's when it really started to grow in terms of being open to more of a community base. But what's really taken off for me since I started my career is community banks disappearing. And in the mortgage world and real estate world, it's always nice where you have the local relationships always matter. At the end of the day, we're always in a relationship-based business. And credit unions have really kind of taken that role of the community lender from the local, First National Bank of whatever your hometown was a couple years ago, or whatever the neighborhood was. So that's probably been our biggest room for expansion, is that people like the local feel. They like having that relationship. And it's the same thing for your business and real estate investments. You want somebody who you can, when you want to have a conversation and you need something, you want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. So that's kind of what we've kind of built our reputation off of.
Now, what about yourself? So when you were hitting the pavement and actually going out there, yes, you were good with numbers. Were you good basically asking for the business?
Yeah, that was always, back then I think I was too young and stupid not to know what I was getting into. And, I would always shoot for the best, the biggest and best, and talk to people and have a conversation. Back when I was young, I had a bit of a football background, and, a lot of people like sports, like conversations. And I would just, looking back, I don't know how I had the guts to actually sit and talk to some of the people I did. But that's really what was one of those key factors of just getting in and jumping in and talking to as many people as possible, asking questions, being conversational, in markets and areas where, everybody always has that excuse of, I don't know anybody, I don't have that connections, they come from some different backgrounds. But a lot of times if you're friendly and can jump in and talk and can have a conversation, that's really what I found was the big factor for me, of being able, not being afraid, and having that confidence to go talk to people. And a lot of times if I didn't know what I was talking about, maybe it was something new to me, I just would ask the question to people and tell me what you're looking for. How do you do it? Tell me about your business. I always say it's similar to that dinner date with a stranger, and that was really where I became, started helping to build that empire up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sometimes a big misconception with newer people into like the real estate lending field is not to be afraid to say you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, let me find that out and I'll get back to you. And if I think for the majority of people, they're gonna be like, okay, if you don't know it, that's fine. Yeah, get me the answer.
Yeah, and yeah, I always tell people, but our world is like a casino slot machine. I mean, there's thousands of combinations that come up. You're not going to know every single situation every time, but you just have to know when you know what you don't know and talk to people that you can get back to them and give you good service, and you can build that trust factor with your client.
So as you transition from originating the loans and being that kind of face-to-face person, what did you start learning about actually managing people and actually guiding people of how they can actually talk to other people? What was that like? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I am a huge believer in work-life balance. And what I really say, where I've really worked with my staff is that, first of all, I believe everybody wants to do well in your job. And I look at my role is to help remove the barriers from people to do their job well. And instead of looking at it I always look at it from a bottom-up approach. How can I help the people under me do their job well? Instead of what are they doing for the company. And the other piece that I focus on is them as a person. When you look at any team, invariably people in their life are going to get sick. They're going to have troubles in their life. And I really believe that if you help them through that and you're accommodating and help them getting over the hump, they'll be loyal to you. And they'll help you build the company. And good people are worth their weight in gold. And when you have them, you're going to have good times. Everybody's going to have bad times in their life. And last year was a great example of how many mothers that we have in our company who needed flexibility for their kids' school. And we have a job to do, but people also have a job to do at home. So, and I really believe focusing on the person, hire good people, and then focus on building that person and letting them succeed in their personal life and professional life is key.
Now, by hiring the right person, what kind of training do you kind of incorporate for each person you bring on? How does that process look like?
Yeah, I'm somebody too that likes to hire a lot of different personalities, and really we try to do when we're mentoring somebody who's new, where are they at, and what are those holes that we could fit in. There's some lenders that are really great and the salespeople. And I always say it's easier to pull somebody back and direct them to the right way than push them out the door. So I want people who have that strong motor, and then we can work with you from there in terms of the technical skills. I hate to say it, but what we do, we're not building bridges, we're not doing surgeries. And, if a guy like me can figure this out, a lot of people can figure this out. So, we can help build that technical knowledge. The one thing that I can't do is light that fire under people. I believe that some things are just intrinsic, and you either have a good motor and go, or you don't. And you probably see that in real estate agents as well. But if somebody has that good motor and wants to succeed, we focus on the skill sets. We focus on and not only just that technical knowledge, but directing them where they're going to get maximum use of their time and maximum results.
I've seen very, very smart people fail in the real estate industry just because they're either scared of asking for the business, scared of having the conversations, or scared of basically starting the process. I mean, yeah.
And there's a big difference between just being busy and being productive.
Yeah.
You can really go out there and want to go, but if you don't know how to be that productive piece, you're just wasting your time.
Now, what levels do you keep in place to make sure that your people are being productive and not just being busy?
Sure. I'm a big Salesforce believer. We're a Salesforce shop. We use a company called Encino, and we manage the results, and we manage that pipeline and the results. And I don't need to know the details of every little thing. I don't manage to a spreadsheet or to that. I want to see that you're productive, and we really focus on those pipeline efforts. And when we see that shift is when I can intervene to people to say, okay, what's happening here? Is it your marketplace? Is it you have something else going on? Sometimes people just have bad luck, and those deals don't fall in place like you want to. So really to get in and identify the root cause of what's happening. 2 years ago, one of my lenders really started to wasn't doing and was on a bad string of bad luck. And when we really got into it, it was a pricing issue. A lot of the people that they were working with, it was pricing over the market. Okay, well, we want to make competitive loans. We want to make good loans, but let's shift it to some different outlets to get you the results.
So you had to change the way the company looked at the loans, or?
Yeah, we work with about 75 different credit unions altogether. And so, if you ask me, does your credit unions do this? The answer probably is yes in some of them. But sometimes different people tend to think financial institutions and the mortgage industry and mortgage banking is a commodity. It's not. It's more like a restaurant. Everybody has different tastes. You can eat a lot of different types of meals. You can eat really top of the line, expensive meals, really cheap, quick, fast. But it's not a commodity on how people deliver it. And not all companies are the same. Not all credit unions are the same.
Was there ever a point that when you're building up the company, working with managing people, that you ever thought about quitting that and going back to being the face person, actually doing it yourself, originating loans? Was there ever a moment like that for you?
No, because there's two reasons. First of all, I moved my whole family for this job.
Okay.
So I had that commitment on the back end. And second of all, I love what I do, and I know it works. So markets will be up, markets will be down, interest rates rise, interest rates fall. But working with credit unions is a really enjoyable outlet because they're very consistent and approachable. So when we have good times, when we have bad times, I know the consistent nature that's going to be there. And really, I look at it as I try to help bring scale to the industry. I can do a lot more good and bring a lot more financing to people that we need it, working with a lot of credit unions than just simply making loans myself.
And what do you think is the most difficult thing about your position?
It would be the people. What's kind of evolved is to watching that virtualized company and managing those virtualized companies. When I started out, we had a small number of people. I could look out and see what everybody's doing. I could see emotions going on. I could hear conversations. Now we're managing a lot of people all up and down various states. So you don't get that day-to-day immediate interaction every day. And also, like I said, the other challenge is not having a homogenous industry where everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's a little bit different, and everybody thinks what they're doing is exactly right. So, kind of managing those expectations of a whole bunch of different credit unions and pushing them together. And also, that, like I said, doing that and really not having that emotional immediate impact in a virtualized environment.
So as long as they're meeting their numbers, you don't mess with how they're getting there.
We try to let people succeed in the personalities that they have. And I have a great lender in Alabama. He's a country club lender. He likes golf courses. He likes to talk about the fraternities. He's an old school country club slap you on the back lender. I have other people who are much more, they deal with a lot of people. I have some people where I have a Spanish language person in Florida who he deals with different communities. I really I let people succeed within their own personality and strengths. So jamming through, this is how you have to do it and this is how you have to be done. As long as they're succeeding and using their strength, I'm good.
So how do you, let's say you're bringing someone on or they're moving up the ranks, how do you assess their strengths to allow them to build a game plan to be successful?
First of all, we spend a lot of time in the interview process. And that, we really try to spend a lot more time in the interview process and assessing that personality and strengths, talking to people that they've worked with in the past and researching how they have done. But then really it's sitting down and talking about them as an individual. How do they live in their circles and communities, and determining the strengths of who they are. And sometimes they don't quite know. So really talking through, tell me about what you're comfortable with, where you like, who do you talk to now? Tell me about your past life in what you've done. We tend not to hire just the straight inexperienced person. So there's a little bit of they've had some molding through the years. So really it's kind of digging in and pulling out their past experience and tell me about yourself as a person, much more than just, oh geez, I like to do $300,000 loans to this community and that's what I do. So how do you get there is what we want to find out.
Makes sense. I mean, if let's say we were talking in 5 years from now, right? Where do you plan you to be and your company to be?
Sure. The biggest change from when I started to today and where I see the industry going is you're seeing a lot more automation and online experience for real estate investments and for small business and commercial lending. And you've seen it like nobody else in the real estate industry. It used to be you called your broker and they gave you a list of houses and it's competitive as ever. We're finally starting to see technology come into play in the real estate investment and commercial and small balance commercial world, where you never saw that before. That piece was always very manual. So we're finally seeing those costs come down with technology, but also the sales delivery channel. What the other piece of that we're seeing lenders like our credit unions. There's a lot of fintechs out there who have that connection as opposed to the lender themselves. So we're seeing a lot more of partnerships with different suppliers and sellers of the product as opposed to that lender on the street. I think we have a very complex product. So I think there's always going to be that relationship piece and the conversation piece. But that front end is really getting squeezed down. and you're seeing that technology piece and people finding their options on a lot more automated basis.
What do you have to do, or are you switching your company, or are you doing trainings, or what are you doing to get your company in a strong position when that automation like gets more prevalent?
Sure, and really, we have made significant investments in infrastructure. We've really virtualized the company. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with our main contractor to build a Salesforce environment so people can apply for real estate investment loans instantly wherever they are and work with their accountants and those types of pieces. The other piece that you asked about preparing the company is that's where we've already started working and reaching out to those fintech providers. Last year we started a new subsidiary called New Direction Lending just for that, just for small business loans that people can get in 3 to 4 or 5 days, and they're getting their money. And generally in this marketplace, in the mortgage banking in this place, the subprime and fast, quick money tends to lead. And that's what you have seen you can go online and get a mortgage in 2 days. You just pay double the interest rate as everybody else. And you saw the same thing in the small business space. You can get your small business loan tomorrow. It's just 35% interest rate. So now we're developing those partnerships where people who deserve quality rates and quality service don't have to give up speed for good interest rates.
I want to end with this question. If you were talking to someone maybe in college or high school and thinking about getting into the lending field, right, debating that idea, what advice would you give them?
Sure. I would give them to not be afraid to don't start out by just asking and sending out a bunch of resumes. Start out by talking to people who are in the business and have those conversations and ask people about their business, ask people about what they like about their business and what they don't like, and ask them if they were to get into it today, how would they go about it? And that initial, people sometimes are too afraid. If I was 22 years old and I graduated college, I'd be scared to death to contact a CEO at a company and say, tell me about the business. But generally what I find is people like talking about themselves and talking about their business. If you call up somebody and ask for a job, they're probably going to hang up the phone on you and call HR. But start with building that network and asking questions. And if you're interested in it, and you very well may find that it's a business that you don't really like. My wife's a pharmacist, and when she got into it, it was great. It was all local pharmacies. Now it's a real automated business, and it's not that she doesn't quite feel that same about it like she did. But just call up and ask people in the business how they got where they are and what they think of it and how people would get into it today. And I think younger people would be surprised what type of reaction they get. And because people like having a conversation, and it's nice to say you help somebody out.
So what's the best way, if someone's listening, to get in contact with you?
Sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Okay. I'm a huge LinkedIn user. I try to stay off of Facebook and Twitter as much as possible. Too much junk out there for me. But Mark Ritter, MarkRitter, or Member Business Financial Services and New Direction. If people send me a message, we're more than happy to help them out. If somebody's wants to get into real estate investments, we'd be more than happy to help them out. We have a huge network of credit unions. Or if they just want to talk with us in general.
Well, even if you're listening right now and you're starting a business, maybe you need a commercial loan or something like that. I mean, that could be a great avenue right there.
We do a large portion of our business is residential real estate investments, but we do small business loans. We do SBA loans. We do commercial real estate, the whole works, but we only do it through community credit unions.
Well, thank you, Mark, for being on the Road to Growth podcast. I think for people listening right now, it was a little unique of a situation because, I mean, we usually talk to business owners that they started the business from the ground up. Yet this gives you, I think a totally different perspective on the other side of it, getting that loan. How Mark's kind of worked his journey from starting his own business and then basically becoming a CEO and cleaning up, I think, someone else's business in essence. So thank you, Mark, for being on the podcast. Again, hopefully everyone got some great nuggets, and please subscribe, please share, and tell your friends. Thanks, everyone.